I survived gunshots, knives, attempted suicides, and death from a seizure before I was 5. See, God got me here for a reason.
Come on.
And even as a youth, my parents said it was apparent I'd be a preacher, but thank God I'm a poet. See, I stay devoted. Spoken word for me is more than Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, poetry slams, and open mics. I don't play poet. Because this gift ain't a game God gave me. He made me design each rhyme as if each line is trying to find salvation. So it's safe to say I write the hell out of a poem. Exercising demons just by speaking. See, time ain't something I'm taking for granted. So every time you see me on stage, I engrave it with the soul of Should Avery. Maybe God's trying to tell me something. Like how the contradiction after the benediction causes conflict. Because how am I going to reach you from a pulpit if you think I'm full of it? That's why they done killed feels their life ain't worth living, feels their spirits lifted from the lyrics I give them. Ain't that deliverance? What's the significance of having a gift if nobody can receive it? See, I too touch the youth, just not like some Catholic preachers. Me, I'm a poet. And no, it don't mean I'm better than anybody else. Poets never claim to be. Never said we're better persons. Just try to make you a better person through our verses. And no, this isn't me versus churches. I just know what my purpose is.
Come on.
See, I stare at blank pages. They look right back at me, asking me, what is it I have to give? Because somewhere, some little girl was had her life jaded by a rapist. Her mama made her call daddy. And had she never heard the poem with the line where I said she's somebody's sunshine, she'd have stopped trying. Another murder-suicide victim prevented by what was written. See, I write to lighten loads on their shoulders, console them and build up pillars of respect so those columns don't bind and we pick up Virginia text. Forget poetry, I write lifelines. Rewind time until you find points you're saved. Save your points, find you until time rewinds. Guys, this ain't poetry. These are testimonies. And every cat tonight you hear speaking ain't nothing but a deacon. And I ain't moving from Michigan for no game or no show. And this stopped being a poem like a minute ago. This ain't a poem. These are God's teachings reaching my thinking, leaking through my ink pen, on stage speaking in hopes that I reach them. His people. Which people? Anybody breathing. And if your love is as blind as mine, you can see what I'm seeing. So I'm going to keep on speaking till he say when. The doors of my verses are open. Let the church say, amen. Once again, how y'all doing? My name is Christopher Owens. I go by the name of Truth Be Told. I'm a spoken word artist, and it is my privilege and pleasure to be your host this evening for Doc Jones and Friends Presents Gospel to Jazz Explosion. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I'm from Saginaw, Michigan, and I went to a Baptist church called Mount Olive. And if your Easter service was anyway the way that my resurrection service was, you're going to have a long day tomorrow. So let me just say, I promise you, we will do our best to make this worth your absolute time and not waste a moment. And you are in for a treat. I've had the privilege of working with some of these musicians that are on the show before. I'm telling y'all, as we like to say back at home, we about to get it in. We're gonna have a little bit of, we're gonna have some church. Not church, not CU, not CURC. We're gonna have some church. We're gonna have some funk. We're gonna have some jazz. We're gonna have some partying. We're gonna have some good times. If I may, as a way to kind of put this together. Now, as I told y'all, my parents said I was gonna be a preacher, but I'm a poet. But I did listen when I was in church, and I remember there being this one particular sermon that talked about Jehoshaphat. And Jehoshaphat had all these people, for the young kids, Jehoshaphat was balling. And other folks was hating on Jehoshaphat, you know, getting on TikTok, getting in the DMs, sliding each other, like, hey, I don't like him. You know what, being a mess with him. And everyone tried to come against him. And they began, as they were surrounded and enemies came, they began to praise. They began to sing. They began to dance. And their prayer and their praise confused their enemies. Confused their enemies so much that they killed each other, and the very loot they came to use to take Jehoshaphat down, he and his people were able to walk away from. Music has always been a powerful tool. I think it was Dr. King. 1964, he was asked to speak in Berlin. And if you know Dr. King, you know 1964 was a rather busy year for him. So, he actually wrote an introduction. And I would like to share it with you because it actually ties together a lot of the stories. People are like, why is it called From Gospel to Jazz? Why is it called From Gospel to Jazz? And I told you a story about Jehoshaphat for a reason. And if you stay with me, I promise we're going to get there. But first, let me share these words with you from Brother Martin. He wasn't able to speak, and I've actually done this speech more than Martin has, and it's awesome. Even though he never released it, it's considered to this day the quintessential description when it comes to jazz. And Dr. King said, God has wrought many things out of oppression. He has endowed his creatures with the capacity to create. And from that capacity has flowed the sweet songs of sorrow and joy that have allowed man to cope with his environment in certain circumstances. Jazz speaks for life. The blues tell life stories, and if you think for a moment, you will realize that it takes the hardest realities of life and put them into music, only to come out with some new hope or sense of triumph. This is triumphant music. Modern jazz has continued in this tradition, singing the songs of a more complicated urban existence. When life itself makes no order or meaning, the musician creates order from the sounds of the earth which flow through his instruments. It is no wonder that so much of the search for identity amongst American Negroes was championed by jazz musicians. Long before essayists and scholars wrote of racial identity as a problem for a multiracial world, musicians were returning to their roots to affirm that which was stirring within their souls. Much of the power from our freedom movement comes from this music. It has calmed us with its sweet rhythms when our courage was beginning to fail. It calmed us with its rich harmonies when spirits were down, and now jazz is exported to the world. For in the particular struggle of the Negro in America, there is something akin to the struggle of modern man. Everybody has the blues. Everybody longs for meaning. Everybody needs to love and be loved. Everybody wants to clap hands and be happy. Everyone longs for faith. In music, especially this particular genre called jazz, there is a stepping stone towards all of these. And I find it ironic that I share that with you today. Earlier this week marked 55 years from the time that Martin was assassinated. For those of you that may or may not watch the news, you may have seen some representatives that were expelled from office in Tennessee as a result of standing up for their rights. And tomorrow, we are Praise and Resurrection Sunday. I just say all that to point out to you, number one, it is ironic how all this week we have reminders of what happens to black men that stand out for people.
That's right, man. That's right.
Number two, it is amazing how through all of these, whether it is Jehoshaphat, whether it's gospel music, whether it's jazz, or whether it's spoken word, which comes from all of them, there is power in what we say and what we do. There is power in our celebration even when we don't feel like it. There's a reason that gospel music hits you a certain way that other music doesn't. It has substance. My granny used to call it soul food. That's why we used to have soul food after the meal. We had the dinner, then we had the meal. But we had